Politics are meant to be performed. While in an ideal world, voters will cast informed ballots based off of policy promises and campaign promises, and then during the next election cycle, they can decide whether or not those promises were fulfilled, we know that in practice that this is not how it really works. Because at the end of the day, you are broadcasting a win-lose race to an entire nation that they have immediate sway in. So what happens then? Then the voters need to be entertained. I'm sorry, is this like way too formal for you too? Like, I'm in a suit and I have a black background. Like, this feels a little bit too much. Like, let's bring this down to earth a little bit. Okay. That's better. So political candidates understand this need to entertain to a certain extent. Candidates know that the attractiveness of their politics can't be the only reason that people vote for them. They know that sometimes they need to turn up the it factor and give the people something to watch, and more importantly, translate that fascination into support. This is why things like charisma and personality matter so much when they're trying to select a party leader or a candidate. People need to like who they're voting for, or at the very least, be interested enough to see where this goes. So this is where the concept of a political brand comes in, or the construct of a brand is being used to signal to voters a series of traits that can be inferred from the presentation. It's a signal to your audience of who you are without needing to re-explain it every single time. So here's the perfect storm that we're dealing with. Political candidates understand the need to build a brand. Social media platforms allow for them to reach a lot of different audiences very quickly, and we, as people, love to see people being weird. Social media then becomes the perfect tool to craft a curated brand and make sure that it reaches who you want it to reach. So we can understand all of that, but to call some of these candidates personable, or to call it personality, seems just like a little bit of a conceptual stretch. I mean, is it personable to bring a chainsaw to political rallies? Or to spend hours and hours and hours on Facebook Live talking about everything and nothing? Or to have a speech about how you feel as a woman in Italy be turned into a traditional electronic Europop dance mix? Is any of that personable to you? See, in a perfect world, you would think that TikTok would be perfect for campaigning. It is short-form video content. It allows for people to convey lots of information in a little bit of time to a big group of people. The almighty algorithm can push videos based on viewership and popularity, which means that having an existing following makes your content more likely to be sent to an even wider audience. It's perfect. This is perfect for a critical time like a campaign, where you need to cast a wide net and reach as many people as you can. But when you look at the accounts of somebody like Milei in Argentina, or Bolsonaro in Brazil, or Meloni in Italy, you start to realize that they're not really using TikTok in that way. I mean, you wouldn't even really be able to tell that a campaign was happening. See, I know that it's cliche to talk about TikTok, but in this context, TikTok does not make any sense. I mean, famously, Bolsonaro's MO was his Facebook Lives, where he was spewing nonsense for hours on end. I mean, and then you have Milei, who famously absolutely adores using X or Twitter, where he will spend hundreds and hundreds of tweets every single day talking about everything ranging from the economy to the people that he's working with. And then you have Meloni, who you're more likely to see on the news channel on TV than you are on your phone. I mean, aside from the fact that TikTok is popular today, there isn't really much of a connection there. But at the same time, they still do use these accounts. It's not like these accounts have not been updated in years or they're only really active during the campaign period. I mean, these people are posting TikToks pretty regularly. I mean, you see it in Bolsonaro's account especially, where he is constantly reposting content. And even with Meloni, where even though she is a bit more traditional with her use, she pushes out so much. So they're using it, but it's just not really in the way that you would think. Bolsonaro's account loves to repost grassroots content, people showing their support in different ways, like infiltrating opposition rallies or creating pro Bolsonaro content in Roblox. Peluca Milei loves to post clips of Milei crashing out on interviewers or like getting hot headed while in the middle of a discussion. Meloni is a lot more varied, but her popular content is her going around and interacting with the world, whether it be making pasta or speaking to adoring crowds. While there is politics injected into each of these accounts by nature of them being politicians, there isn't very much explicitly political content. Now, when I say explicitly political, I mean campaign content. I mean, during a campaign, you expect to see people going on, posting videos of them breaking down their platform points and going down into the nitty gritty details, maybe even occasionally dogging on the opposition every once in a while. I mean, you're supposed to go through and pitch yourself as a politician to the people. But through each account, would you believe that I could only really find 5 total TikToks that did that across all of my sample, and 3 of them came from Meloni. So this doesn't exactly mean that the rest of the content isn't political, but at the same time, what is political to begin with? Yeah, relating to politics, but what is being achieved, what politics are being achieved through this content? Politics is not just policies and elections. It has to do with ideologies. It has to do with how they manifest and how we're interacting with them. So when you post a video of one of your followers going to a pro LGBTQ rally, posting up with the signature 2 to show their support for you, you are making a statement about what your followers can and can't do and what you are willing to endorse. You're conveying what kind of behavior you are allowing in your space. It's fine to egg on the opposition because the TikTok algorithm says that it's funny. And that's where it all comes to a head. It's funny on TikTok. This would be a discussion point on mainstream media if this was happening on mainstream media, but we're on TikTok. So we're following the logic of TikTok. I'm there to laugh, and it's funny. And then the next question arises. So what? Yes, candidates use their TikToks to develop brands and identities outside of the campaign. But that conclusion isn't really groundbreaking by any metric, but let's think about this in its totality. During the most critical time of a politician's lifespan, rather than using their resources to garner more support and attempt to translate that support into political participation, they are instead worrying about making sure that they're reposting fan content or editing clips of the ops getting totally owned on TV. Is that not a little bit odd? Some would say peculiar. Dare I even say weird? Because at the end of the day, what brand is being built there? What brand is achieved by arguing with interviewers and journalists? By posting videos of you making pasta with a nonna in somebody's backyard? By posting a Roblox Let's Play? What brand as a politician are you creating? But maybe then the brand that's being created doesn't have to follow a political logic, but instead an influencer one. Maybe the goal isn't to try and bring as many supporters as you can and translate that support into political participation, but maybe the goal is something else, to bring these politicians back down to earth, but by not treating audiences as voters, but by treating them as the prosumers that they are when they become online. Because at the end of the day, when you start using TikTok, you're playing by TikTok's rules. We need to follow the candidate not because they're going to spew political jargon at us for hours on end on their account, but for the same reason that I would log on to TikTok for any other reason, to be entertained. So when you start thinking about these politicians and candidates as influencers, suddenly their content makes a lot more sense. Posting a vlog meeting people and unveiling a new gift is relatable. Posting an edit celebrating a win is heartwarming. Posting a vlog running into crowds of adoring fans is reassuring, and it touches on everything that we're expecting to see when we log into these apps regardless, making the politics seamlessly blend into our existing For You pages. Now, it's no secret that these candidates are all right-wing to various extents, ranging from their historical affiliations to their economic policies to their social traditions. And while the attempt to become an influencer isn't a strictly right wing tactic, maybe these politicians are just better at adapting to the TikTok landscape. It's easy to pick up the phone and repost followers antagonizing the opposition because that's what you're seeing them do on mainstream TV, anyways. It's just a different format. Now, this analysis thus far has considered the campaign to be a critical part of the lifespan of a political candidate because, in theory, the campaign is where you get to flaunt where you're at. However, we know that the campaign is no longer temporal. Yes, there is a set time that you're allowed to be campaigning, but that does not mean that it exists only within these times. Enter the permanent campaign. Parties know this very well. They're spending their hard earned donations to strengthen their bases, engaging in micro targeting practices through buying data through third parties and then sending them extremely targeted ads, canvassing on the ground to engage party members to ensure that when an election does come around, they can count on their vote and participation, and more and more and more and more and more. During these off seasons, it is a round the clock endeavor to ensure that you're capturing the political spirit. And during the on seasons, you have to tap into that spirit and turn it into action so that you can win your election. But did you catch that second part? The part where I said on the ground canvassing? So, what if this curation of a political brand, this almost natural, seamless, and easy use of the account is exactly that? What if it is an online form of the permanent campaign that doesn't include the dubious privacy violations, but instead one that uses social media for what the people love it for? It is much less abrasive than being directly advertised to, and it humanizes these politicians that are almost deified for their potential to save their country from ruin. Now, I'll admit, it is shocking to log into these accounts and to see very elaborately edited clips engaging in almost fanboy behavior when you're expecting to be persuaded on somebody's politics. But at the same time, I can't really blame anyone for wanting to see a different side of these people. Maybe in another timeline, we're voting based strictly on policy, and these TikTok accounts are used for nothing but campaigning and pushing policy ideas. But in this timeline, I get to watch Javier Milei birthday edits and Neymar dancing in toy cars. I don't know which one is better, but I certainly know which one made me laugh.